Grand Rising, everyone. This is another episode of Grand Rising Empowerment. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about Ma'at. And as usual, we have our subject matter expert here, Dr. Lloyd C. Darby, on the episode. How you doing today, Dr. Darby?
Absolutely fabulous. Still standing, brother. Thank you for having me once again. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So I've done a little bit of research on Ma'at. So it is a way of conducting ourselves when we're interacting with one another. What exactly in your expertise is Ma'at?
Well, basically, my art are tools. They're tools that represent the core ethical and cosmic ideals designed to govern our daily life, societal order, and spiritual balance. They're designed to align personal actions with our universal divine order in an effort to prevent world chaos. So, as you can see, the Ba'at philosophy and principle is what encapsulates the world today. If we had more of these teachings, we would not be facing some of the tragedies we are around the world right now, regardless of who's in the White House. You know, you often hear a lot of people complain about our president and what he's doing and how he's leading the country. Well, Ma'at sort of takes care of that because it deals with a culture in a society, and it puts forth principles and concepts and philosophies that helps a community and society maintain its peace and preserve its order, if that makes sense. So if you want to know about Ma'at, the first place you have to figure out is, where do you find them? Where do we find these principles? And these principles can be found in a book we call the Pert Heru. Some refer to it as the book of the coming forth by day and by night, and it's been written more than 3,000 years ago, way before the KJV Bible. It's a book that spells out right and wrong within a society and culture. It contains certain laws and regulations that are designed to keep the people in tune with their culture. Now, this is important because the writers of the Bible, speak of a man called Moses who gave 10 commandments from God to the people. Truth is, they plagiarized and remixed 10 of the 42 confessions of Ma'at from these 10 commandments, changing the core belief from a cultural internal experience to help regulate a healthy, productive society to an external, religious, negative one that required belief and faith to exist. In other words, the Pert Heru and the philosophy of Ma'at points everything towards oneself instead of others. So if you're looking at the power in Ma'at, the power resides in the discovery of your divine self. What's your thoughts on that, brother?
Oh man, first of all, that's powerful.
Yes, sir.
Secondly, I've always wondered in my studies, how can someone, thinking about Moses,
Yes.
how he came into the presence of the daughter of Pharaoh,
Yes, sir.
be raised in the culture and not know about the principles of the confessions. It just using logical thinking and that whole idea. How can someone be raised in a culture and not know about these things prior to going to Mount Sinai, and then God spoke to him and gave him these 10 commandments? I'm just trying to use logical thinking when
Absolutely.
it comes to this biblical journey and understanding. Like it will make more sense that he would be versed. Because he had to grow up in the culture. He had to grow up in knowing everything about, in order for him to be the prince.
Absolutely. Well, think about it. Why would he run away after killing someone? He was in a high-ranking position. He was second command, right? So, but what he knew already that he violated, after he committed that murder, he ran. He hid in the wilderness, right? These principles and concepts were already within him, and they were within every individual. The difference is that when you're dealing in Christianity and biblical concepts, they don't have the power within you. Everything points to someone outside yourself, whether it's Jesus, whether it's the sky God, Bible sky God, whether it's the water when you're being baptized, whether it's the evidence of speaking in a tongue or an unknown tongue. Everything is coming for an external visit, right? But it doesn't give you that internal power. See, all this stuff is metaphor. It's metaphorically. There's no actual physical war in this book right here. It's all metaphor, and it's all meant to extract the more meaning, spiritual meaning, a deeper meaning. It's a little bit different than what's written in the Bible, where you actually see both. You see wars that are spiritual, but you also see physical killing. And what you see in the Pert Heru is these stories of war that's all symbolic to extract a more deeper meaning. Now, Moses did know this, but like I said, there's no power. And Ma'at will challenge you to go to the gate of your consciousness to reach that higher level. And based on how well you deal with the philosophy of Ma'at will determine how high you go in your level of consciousness. You know, you and I always talk about higher self and lower self, how it exists in every individual. And depending on what you're doing will determine how you'll be walking. You know, for example, if you're with your family and you're walking down the street and here comes someone up to rob and steal or hurt you, it does you no good to drop on your knees and start praying to them. You're going to have to use some type of force to make sure your family is safe and to keep them off of you. And according to Ma'at, this is lower thinking. Why? Because you're going to deal with killing another human being, possibly, injuring another human being, possibly, harming another human being, possibly. So now you have to know when to regulate that.
Okay.
And then after you've done it, you got to be restored. See, back to your higher self so you can walk accordingly among the people and you won't be a threat to the culture or the society. So a better way to say it is the major difference in the principles of Ma'at are power. They define how high you can go in your level of consciousness. It's an internal individual responsibility that deals with your consciousness. It helps you maintain your consciousness. And that's what you want. You want a righteousness state of consciousness. Does that make sense at all?
Oh, it makes total sense. That's
yeah,
right.
So you ever been to a spot in your memory where you know how you had that short temper? You know, you fly off just like that, right? Well, as you get older, if you're fortunate enough, you'll mature in your thought process. So the things that used to make you fly off the handle, now you step back, okay? And you can enter that area of your thought process that says, hey, that's not worth it. Let me just relax. Let me leave this with peace until it gets a little bit deeper, or my life is not on the line, or I'm not affected by it in some kind of emotional or physical way. It ain't even worth it. And I relate this a lot to traffic. All right.
I was just thinking that. Oh my good. I was just thinking that. Like, how man?
Yeah, people flipping the bird in traffic.
Absolutely.
Somebody almost hit you, or they swerved. Maybe they were on their phone, and they swerved and hit you. Now you following them down the road and honking the horn, and right, they're going on about their business. But now you're stuck in this lower level of ego and self-righteousness. Hey, I'm not going to let you just do that without stopping you. I've seen some track them down, even if they weren't going to the same place, and wait till they pull over, get out their car, and get to cursing them out, screaming. Well, what they've actually done is they've actually failed to pass that gate, that test, okay, where they have been brought out of their higher self down to a lower place, which Ma'at will refer to that as ego. You bruised it. So now I got to stop, give you peace of my mind, right? And now I'm going to get in my car and go off. And hopefully the police doesn't come and lock you up.
Or even worse, hopefully you don't lose your life over it.
Or somebody else's by getting into an accident, chasing somebody down the road because they didn't move when the red light turned green because they were looking down on their phone. So many people shot and stabbed because of these crazy stuff here. I knew somebody, they threw a can, they were drinking a can of soda, and they threw the can out the window into the car. And then the person, when they hit their car, the person pulled over and they followed him. He got out his car and beat the crap out the dude because you don't ever know who you're dealing with.
You don't.
On this road.
You
That
don't.
makes sense.
That makes total sense. Dr. Darby, the 7 principles of Ma'at.
Yes, sir.
Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes.
Ma'at.
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 Mm-hmm.
So the 7 principles of Ma'at are?
I'll tell you what, before we get to that, let's do like this. Let's look at the differences between how they read. That's a good question you just asked. But let's look at the differences of how they read. Okay, so what we call the 10 Commandments that were in a book that was written by the authors more than 3,000 years later. What you see is these commandments being pulled out of these 42 negative confessions of Ma'at. Now, you see this book right here?
Yeah, go ahead.
You see I have one, right?
Now, tell the viewers or the listeners what that book is, Dr. Darby.
This is actually the actual book where you find these 42 confessions. The Pert Heru is the correct name for it. It's also known as the Book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night, and it's also called the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Now, I'm willing to admit that just like the Bible and the Quran and any other book, it was written by humans. You know how I feel about the human, right? You can't get around anything down here on this planet without the human, but they were written by humans. But the reason why I like the principles in this book is because they're designed to have more of an effect that's positive on humanity other than the King James. In addition, this book was before every other book written. So whether you're in the Quran, the Talmud, it does not matter because there's a first, okay? And it's not the first book ever written, but it's the first book written with the rules and principles that can govern a society to be more successful and productive. Now, this is prior to invasion. They were invaded by other humans like any other society. But this book is where you will find these 42 confessions. Now, walk with me on this. The difference between the Ma'at confessions and the 10 Commandments is the 10 Commandments point everything away from yourself. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit murder. But the 42 confessions go internal. I have not killed. I have not committed murder. So now what you've done, you put yourself in the hot seat. And it's different. This is why people that are Christians can continue to do the external ceremonies, but their life does not change. So even though I'm baptized, I'm just a wet person.
Wet human.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it does not take away my sin nature. It's just a public display saying that's what I want to do. You find a lot of cussing Christians. They claim they should not be using that profanity and so forth because they're Christians. So they say, God forgive me, and then cuss you out. Well, if you read the Bible, it says, let all your speech be seasoned with salt. That means no profane babblings will come out of your mouth. But you do it anyway because you have the wrong understanding. If you also look, what you'll see is that anytime you're pointing the finger that's saying you shouldn't, you shouldn't, you shouldn't, you're going to have a group of people that's ruling over you that's doing what they say that you shouldn't do. It's different in your mind when you say, I shouldn't. I shouldn't. I'm not concerned with you, because the philosophies of Ma'at make you deal with yourself on its own. The Ten Commandments can never do that. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Well, what about you? Well, I can, but you can't. And this is the subliminal message that they're sending to themselves every time we cover the Ten Commandments in a Christian mindset. It always saying what the other person should not do, but it doesn't deal with you as an individual. But what about you, Pastor? Well, I don't either. No, you didn't say that. You said we should. Now, don't even make me go into that investigation I did over the divorce rate in pastors, the adultery rate in pastors, cheating, and all. And I always go deeper on the pastors because I think they have a position where they can manipulate others the best.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, from the top.
Absolutely, without question.
You see?
That power resides in that position.
Absolutely.
And you can, like you just said, you can manipulate, form a thought pattern on how you should be conducting yourself.
Yes.
The psychological influence, the power to force your congregation to, hey, look, close them doors.
Yes.
Close the doors.
Yes.
Hey, look, I done pulled all of your tax records.
Yes.
Now I know how much y'all all make.
Yes.
This past year.
Yes.
And I know y'all haven't given your 10%.
There you go. See? All pointing outside.
Outside. And conformity. Conformity on the part of the congregation.
Absolutely.
To, well, he's the pastor.
Absolutely.
He has a direct line with God. We must be obedient.
Must be obedient. You see?
Man, it's so dangerous.
And everything is outside. Everything is outside. You aren't doing this. We haven't collected enough. The pastor, what's his name? Marvin Winans, just was outed for condemning a woman that was given $1,200 in the line where he was commanded for $2,000. And he just busts her out right there in front of everybody. That's not enough. You guys aren't listening. And then you had these other Christian pastors that try to come up and defend him. There's no defense on that. Basically, he wanted a certain amount of money to do a certain business, to conduct it in the church, to expand the building of the church. And he asked for that. However, if they came and the woman gave what she had, accept it. See, this is the difference. This is where Ma'at will allow you to accept that, to where Christianity won't. He told her, hey, you're not being obedient and you guys are not listening. This is $1,200. Well, that $1,200 to her was just like $2,000. Matter of fact, did you see the video? Had the little kid with her, standing right beside her.
He witnessing the behavior
there you go.
of the pastor to her, the congregation member.
Right. Now, I'm not commending his right to do it. Obviously, he can do it. He did it. Okay. What I'm commending is the behavior. I'm condemning that because, I don't agree with that behavior. That's why I don't. Now, he did, and anybody else who stayed after witnessing that, hey, you're going to get what you deserve. That's all I'm saying. So that's the first big difference in Ma'at compared to the Ten Commandments. Even though they took those from the 42 confessions, they remixed it and changed it to put themselves in power, this particular group, okay? So now you're telling everybody what they won't do, but you are allowed to do it. Thou shalt not. Well, we didn't say that. We got to follow that too. No, even the term thou shalt subliminally suggests that's someone else, not yourself. Ma'at deals with you. I have not committed murder. I have not coveted someone else's goods. I have not. And I think that's very important when you're dealing with this philosophy.
Now, before we move on, we were talking about a book now. Back then, they didn't have books, so where would that information be?
They did have book. Papyrus.
Okay.
Yeah, see, that's another common
misconception.
Good question. Yeah, okay. Misconception. Yeah, they had papyrus. They had books. What you see here is a refined version to put it in this form to help understand. Wallace E. Budge is a good one to read when you start talking about the Book of Common forth by day and by night, who put the work in to make sure that everything was correct and consistent. And that's another thing. If you pick up this book and another book, you're going to find the consistencies in the book of the coming forth by day and by night. You can't do that with the Bible. You got the NIV, KJV, Amplified, American Standard, Morse. I mean, it got so many different ones, you see. But you want some consistency with proof of stone writings, with proof of papyrus, with proof and evidence of artifacts, monuments, names. I mean, you're not going to be able to get away from Kemet. We call it Egypt now for lack of a better term, but you're not going to be able to get away from Kemet. Was there a society before Kemet? Yep, but it wasn't as productive as Kemet. It was Cush, absolutely, but they birthed Kemet, okay? And Kemet took it further. And of course, I'm not saying that we are back still back there in that time, no more than I'm saying we're back in biblical time. But if it's a good philosophy, it's a good philosophy. I don't even care what time it is.
It's just we're at a stage now that understanding the knowledge that's in plain sight, right, for
Absolutely.
us to learn for yourself.
Absolutely.
And there's a statement that I've heard over the last few years. We have to start unlearning to relearn, unlearn to relearn, unlearn some of the framing and the structures that's been placed upon us to get us to act a certain way.
Yeah.
And relearn and digest the historical and philosophical starting and kind of like compare and contrast it. You should challenge what you're reading.
How would you know?
How would you know if it's true or false?
See, we've been on both sides.
Right.
See, so I was on the Christian side, on the pastor side. I know both philosophies. I know how Christianity reads and what you're supposed to do. And I know how the Pert and Heru reads and what it suggests that you do. So being from that position, I think that gives me the authority, and you as well, to speak on it. But I mean, how are you going to speak on the Bible if you never read it? And all you know is some verses that somebody pulled out in a service all the time. How are you going to speak on the Pert and Heru if you never read it and you don't have one? I mean, all you can do is go by what somebody showed you or taught you. But if somebody taught you it, then you read it yourself, then you investigated it, then you researched it, now you can regurgitate it, you can speak on it a little bit. You can know what's going on. I mean, I used to think, I don't know about you, but anything out of Kemet, I used to think was idol worship. And animalistic, they had animal heads and human bodies, and some was half alligator, and there's one that's half bear, and I mean, it's all kind of things, because I did not understand the symbolism, okay? But as I read it, I started discovering biblical stories in this. Well, wait a minute. This book was thousands of years before the Bible. So the Bible, the Pert and Heru couldn't have gotten the story from the Bible because it came so much later. So this story must have came from that. And then some of it is just line for line, Like I tell you with those confessions, I can find all 10 commandments in the 42 confessions, all 10 of them. Now, when you reword it, though, it gives you a different power than I have now. It takes it off of you subliminally. It takes the responsibility off of yourself and puts it on the citizens or the people or the society. And then it becomes your culture. It becomes, well, that's the king. Leave the king alone. Let the king have his way, do what he wants, give everything to the rulers, but that's not us. He's higher than us. And that's the difference in that philosophy of Ma'at. It makes everyone equal, have to follow the same principle if you want to continue to be productive and maintain life on the planet as a community. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Let me make sure I understand. So the major difference between the 10 Commandments and the 7 principles or the 42 laws of Ma'at, am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay, is external and internal.
Absolutely.
External and internal.
Yeah, one deals in your higher self and a higher level of consciousness. Remember, every time you're faced with something that is considered to be, I'm trying to use the name that we'll all be able to be, let's call it something against the culture, something against society, something that's going to bring the humanity down. Okay, you have a decision to make, and based on the decision that you make, it's going to determine, are you able to enter through that gate of your consciousness? Are you able to walk in this higher level? Now, if you mess it up, you have to go start all over again until you can be faced with the same thing consistently in order to get past this. So in this next piece, I'm going to explain that because it's based on what represents this Ma'at. Who is Ma'at? In short, Ma'at is the daughter of Ra. Ra is the life giver, or the layman would like to call the sun god, but it's the life giver. In other words, nothing exists without the sun, that big star in the sky. It's the giver of life, and it produces life, and it gives us, I mean, I can go into that for a whole hour about what the sun does for the earth, but nevertheless, this is the daughter. This is metaphorically. All this is symbolic. There's nothing real. And she is represented by a woman wearing a feather on her head, holding an ankh, and sometimes she has outstretched arms like wings. You've probably seen this before, right? And of course, it's in here. And that woman called Ma'at sometimes is near a scale. So the feather is placed on the side of the scale, and on the other side, your heart is placed. And it's done to see if you are fit enough to go forward in that level of consciousness. In other words, your heart can't be heavier than a feather. So you've heard the term light-hearted, right? This is where this comes from. And if your heart is heavier than that feather, that means you have some work to do in your own consciousness. You have to go back and get everything cleared up within yourself, whether that's rereading, whether that's getting a mentor, whether that's meditating. But you have to go back and do some work because you were not fit enough to enter that level of consciousness. You can't get through that gate. So what I'm doing is I'm explaining this metaphorically and externally. But the true work is done internally and is mental through your consciousness. If I want to see evidence of that, I've got to see you put to the test. Now, if the whole society and community is following this culture and put through this test, what you're going to find is peace, like it was before any invaders. Okay? When we start talking like this, we can put it together, whether it's the Native American, whether it's the continent of Africa. When them invaders came, now they took away what was in place and they replaced it with this thou shalt not instead of this I will not. Does that make sense? Just imagine a scale, right? And on this scale, one side is a heart, one side is a feather. Every time you're presented with a challenge that will cause you to go into your lower self, you know if you're going to your lower self because now you got trembling, you got shaking, your thoughts are evil, you know, you're mean, you want to do harm, you know if you are. But you're able to get past that. And then you're able to go through this next level of thinking to where somebody else will do something contrary to what's right. And that's whether it's harm to yourself, harm to someone else, or harm to society. So anything that can cause you, now the scriptures always say that this is the devil, you know. The devil roameth about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. But in the philosophy of the Ma'at challenges you to pass that gate every time, pass through that test, if that makes sense. Okay. When you start dealing with a society of God beings, our heart should be light as a feather anyway and never heavy. You know, in other words, you shouldn't carry things around in your consciousness that weigh you down. So can you think of any time where someone has something they're still carrying and it's been over for years, but yet they act as though it was yesterday?
Fresh in their mind.
Absolutely.
Vivid.
Absolutely.
Can lay out all the details about something that happened 20 years ago.
Right. And they're telling you this story and you think it just happened. And then you start, hey, when was this? Oh man, that was 1992? 92. Man, it's 2026. But it's time to put that down and move on. Now, if you can't, you know, that's something that you got to deal with, you know. And let me see if I can say this without trying to offend anybody. It happens a lot when people transition and go into the next, you know, phase, or what they call death. You know, I don't happen to believe there is no such thing as the death of any bloodline. I think the bloodline just continues. I believe we all are dying right now. And when we take our final breath, we rest, but we're regenerated through the same bloodline. So that's how you have ancestors. So I just can't see no period where there's the end of your bloodline. However, you know, most society doesn't see it that way. They see, you know, when you die, that's it. The person's dead. Or we make up this fallacy about them looking down on us and in heaven or on a throne or something to that nature. However, I believe you return in your bloodline and you really never die. You live everlasting. You know, I was talking to my dad yesterday, and he was talking about this train we're going to get on board, the love train. And
Okay.
and the train is going to be full of spirits that have transitioned and died, and they're all going to this place on a higher level. And it's called the Love Train, and the OJs wrote a song about it.
That's right.
Right? And so have the Impressions. I don't know, you familiar with the Impressions, Curtis Mayfield? Okay. So you remember that song, people get ready, there's a train coming, right?
Okay.
Same thing, okay? And it's real, it makes you feel good.
It does.
I get it. But it's a song, man. You know, it's a song. And I'm not gonna, you know, step on anybody's dream about seeing somebody again. You know, the truth is, when you transition, you will come back in a bloodline, but it may not be you, but it's the same blood for sure. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, here's the 7.
The 7 principles of Ma'at are
Truth, justice, balance, harmony, reciprocity, righteousness. What you're doing is you're looking to how you can exercise these principles in your everyday life. Okay? First one is very simple. Truth, committing to honesty and knowing what is true. Committing to honesty and knowing what is true. You know, we had this saying that you can't hide from yourself, and you can't lie to yourself.
That's absolutely true. You can't.
Yes.
You wake up, you with yourself.
You're with yourself, and you can't lie to yourself.
You can attempt to try to.
Right. Now, in Christianity, you can lie to yourself and you can lie to others, right? All you got to do is say, forgive me, Lord, and I won't do it again. Or you can plead the blood. Say, hey, Jesus died for all my sins, past, present, and future. So yes, I made a mistake. You know, Donnie Hathaway, wow. Donnie, the gospel artist.
Donnie McClurkin.
Donnie McClurkin. We fall down, but we get up. For a saint is just a sinner who fell down. So how many times? How many times? Right. How many times fall down and get up? How many times we forgive for falling down and get up? All right. Scripture says
70 times 7.
Hello. That's an infinite amount of number, ain't it? He said, yeah, every time. Just keep falling out, keep getting up. Keep falling out, keep getting up. Well, that's not a system that's going to serve society very well, because as a pastor, I can tell you I had a few times family members that I laid hands on, prayed for. They were locked up. They got out, came to church for a whole 3 months straight. Lay your hands on them. They crying and everything. Where were they at in that 4th month? Right back in there again. So that's, well, pastor, you did what you're supposed to do, but they have responsibility too. They just didn't have enough faith. No, they had the wrong mindset. They had no wrong mindset, because what they do is say, Jesus is my Savior. Jesus is my Lord and Savior. God won't put on me no more than I can bear. He's going to hold me up. What Ma'at says is that it's you. You're the reason why you keep doing this. So you got to say, I will not. I shall not. Not nothing that's external, but you got to point internal. I just didn't, know that at the time. I continue to do what any other congregation does. Pray for you, lay hands on you. Okay. Meditate on your behalf. Send me the list of the sick and shut in. Let's pray for them too. Everything is external. But internally, we could have dealt with that, because you're dealing in truth. Why are you really continuing to do this behavior? And what you'll find out is your answers in the mirror, outside any mental illness or anything, right? Okay, justice, acting fairly and uprightly to oneself, to yourself first. Let's deal with that. Because if you can't act righteous to yourself, how can I expect you to do it for others? You understand? During my walk as a pastor, I ran into more than one pastors and ministers that were just out of prison, or some of them were not very, how can I say, they weren't educated on the highest level, but they were pastors. They could preach, they could jump, hoop, we used to call it hooping, do everything, okay? But they had criminal history. Now, in Christianity, you're allowed to do that, because all I have to do is preach you a sermon that puts the guilt on you. God gave me another chance. And 2 years ago, I was serving life. I was facing life. And look how he delivered me. That's all I have to do in that. But the philosophy of Ma'at will not allow you to do that, because it's going to say, before I can teach this, I have to be this. I don't have to be that. I have to be this. I have to be what I'm teaching. Okay? And that's in the scriptures too. The people don't read it much like that, but it's in the scripture too, because you got to get this straight. I'm not talking about all pastors. I also knew some pastors that was walking that walk and talking that talk. As the scriptures say, they were that written epistle. Unfortunately, though, that weren't the masses, because there are not too many congregations where you can question the pastor. You better sit down, okay? And anybody who thinks they can, please write me, because I was there. See, I'll tell you, I stood up many a time, and you got a couple of seconds before the deacon board come, security come. Why? But because if you're acting fairly and uprightly towards everyone, what's the problem? Speak on it. So the justice of Ma'at doesn't allow you to do that, because internally you're dealing with all this.
Just listening to you, Dr. Darby, with dealing with that one aspect, one principle, which is trust.
Yes.
The word.
You mean truth?
No, the second one.
Oh, justice. Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's good.
Comes to self-respect.
Mm.
Individuals are contending with loving oneself, respecting oneself. And a lot of people don't have that self-respect, so therefore, how can it be given? How can justice how can respect be given to someone else when you don't
Yes.
internally
Mm-hmm.
respect yourself?
Yeah.
I thought about the song,
Yeah.
respect
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. All God had to say is that I'm with you. Okay. Harmony, maintaining a rhythmic, peaceful, and cooperative existence. So when you start talking about harmony is basically that balance that you're looking for in your life. So I like to tie those two together. If you look at the one next under, it says balance, sustaining equilibrium in life, and respecting the natural order of things. So even though you may not agree with it, there's still a certain amount of harmony and balance that you can maintain to exist with it. Our president, for example, often people tell me, man, aren't you upset over what Donald Trump is doing and how he... No, no, because I exercise my art in that respect. And I know that whatever he's doing cannot be greater than the creator of the universe because he's in the universe as well. So this is how I negate any negative feelings I have towards that office, okay? Because that's what he's in. And I already know time is for everyone. He got a time too, just like anybody else, okay? So whoever you put in there, they're not going to be greater than me. Whoever's in there cannot be greater than the God mind, right? And the God mind determines its own faith. So you can sit in the seat that you want. And when he is being unrighteous, he just did something earlier today, this morning, that was unrighteous, an unrighteous act. But he's not the first, probably won't be the last. And we'll have to deal with it until that clock ticks in his time and when he's out of the seat. Okay, if I know that, now I believe in it. I'm not going to give him too much more space in my brain than that.
I know. A battle. See, that's why family, if you're listening to this, it's good to have a mentor or someone that you can kind of collaborate with and help you on your journey. Because when it comes down to that,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
living my lower self. I'm living in my lower self right now.
You and a bunch of other folks.
And I'm trying. I'm trying to live in my upper self when it comes down to that particular individual that we were just speaking on.
Yes, sir. Well, we are close to that because we were in the armed service forces.
That's right.
And we, where they have to go. I mean, that's who's going to do it.
That's right.
And if I feel anything, it'll be the compassion and empathy for those soldiers and the families that have to deal with that. But we went through our section of it too. You know what I mean? And we know what we signed up for. When you raise your right hand, you know what that's all about. Did we intentionally go in for that? Probably not. I didn't. But I knew that if the time came, I better pay attention to all this training we're out here doing because, you're definitely going to need it. But for me to circumvent what I have to do and the way I'm planning and move based on who's in the White House, I can't do that because whatever it is, I'm going to be greater than that. Now, if I'm the only one that's singled out individually, okay, then maybe I'll think about it. But I'm not. It's all of us. And right, wrong, or indifferent, he's in there. He's supposed to be our president. I got news for you. He is. Commander-in-Chief. Okay? Next one, order. Adhering to the divine structure of the universe is important because when you're dealing with the divine, you're talking about something in existence that's on automatic operation, okay? The star, the moon, the earth, the water, the wind, the planets. This is the divine order of the cosmos, and it runs through every single living thing, whether creature or not. Plant, tree, whatever. Insect, okay? It runs through everything. And understanding that divine order and where you fit in can actually save your life sometimes. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of people still think they can defy the divine order of things. And they end up, dead. First, you have to learn about the divine order. And when I say divine order, I'm not just talking about the life of it. I'm talking about what you have in common with those things in that life of it. What is your connection to the tree? What is your connection to the plant? What is your connection to the water? What is your relationship with these things? What is your relationship with the minerals in the ground, in the earth? Why is the stardust and the human dust the same dust? What's your relationship with that? Now, if you don't know what that is, you can go and learn it, especially in these days and time. You can Google that and you'll figure out that everything has this same energy, as you often say, running through it. It encompasses the whole cosmic and production of the universe and life. So what role do we play in that? That's what I like about the divine order. We're not here to disrupt it. We're here to fit in and do our part in it. Next one, reciprocity. Understand that actions have consequences. Oh my goodness. That makes me want to go back to the preaching days. Understanding that our actions have consequences and you want to give as much as you take. That alone, reciprocity, will help us in maintaining order, balance, and harmony with everyone, especially when you start talking about those that you have done wrong intentionally or unintentionally. But you got to go back and restore and correct that in relationships, okay, in business, all right, and in your personal life. This is all internal again. You go back, hey, what have I done to disrupt this person that they cannot benefit from? And then you go back and restore them to this place. So it's a little different than salvation, okay, which is what the Christian tries to say. What this is saying, hey, listen, I know I told you this, I know I said that, but I failed you in that. So what I'm here to do is apologize and make it right. That's going to give me an even scale. But it takes a certain level of thought in your higher self to do that, especially if you was really wrong. You understand? And I know this. I'm saying this from actually living it. Prior to that, I would say, ask God to forgive me. But that doesn't require me to do anything. I'll tell you a story about myself real quick. Years ago, this is over 30 years ago, I got transferred to another store. Before I got transferred, I had filed bankruptcy. And you know, when you file bankruptcy, what it does to your credit. Credit was bad, man. Credit was bad. Not only was it the credit bad, I also had this habit a long time ago of writing checks that would not clear until a couple of days later. So we used to call that, trying to catch it, right? So if I get paid on Friday, I'll write you a check on Wednesday because I know it's going to take you a couple of days. Of course, that wouldn't work today anyway, but I know it's going to take a couple of days before it hit Friday. But what it would do is sometimes it would hit anyway, which would be resulting in a $35 fee. Not only that, if you don't pay it, they actually can put a warrant out for you because you have bad checks floating around in town, you see? As I try to catch up with all this stuff, you got this all on your record. Not knowing one day I may need this credit check thing. And, we're old enough to remember when you can get an apartment and they didn't check your credit for no apartment. You just needed first month, last month, and all that. Well, I was right on the cusp of that when this happened. I go in, the lady asked the question, have you ever filed bankruptcy? Or do you have any thing that may prohibit you from living in this fine establishment? Nice apartments, man, nice ones. I said, oh, no, not us, no, not me. So the queen was in the car. She wasn't even in there. So now mind you, I'm in this changing phase in my head, you know. So I go outside, I go back there. She said, well, let me do it. This is going to take me a couple of hours. Let me run this when you come back, you know. So I went and got in the car. Queen said, what's wrong? I said, well, I just lied in there. The lady told me, asked me if I filed bankruptcy, if I have anything, you know, on the record. I'm about to write a check. And I know what I did. You know, of course, her, why did you do that? You know, she pure as a driven snowman. She don't do no wrong. I come from this, you know, I come from Philly, man. You know, we get it done. We do what we got to do, you know. And but she, oh, why did you do this? So I'm like, I know. Oh man, I know. So she said, well, you know. So I said, well, look, I'll just pray about it. You know, God will open that door. And I said, you know what? No, I'm not. I'll tell you what. So I'm riding down the street. I'm at the red light now. So I do a whip U-turn. I said, I'm just gonna go in here and I'm gonna tell her I lied. You know, I have. And boy, let me tell you something. You know, I'm a pretty big guy, pretty strong. That takes something.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to. I could have let her go ahead and call me and say, you didn't get in, what's going on? But I did. Not even know what I'm practicing, this principle, not even knowing it. So I go in. She said, hey, Miss Darcy, listen, I need to talk to you. I told you I didn't file bankruptcy, but I did. And I had a couple of bad checks out there too. And that I took care of later, but you know, it's still not there. And her question was, why did you lie? And I said, well, I wanted to get the apartment. She said, well, you were not going to get it that way because I would have found out. I said, I'm sure you would have, but I want to make sure that I let you know because I appreciate you at least taking the time. So she said, okay, well, and she took the application. She began to tear it. And she said, hold on, Miss Darby. I tell you what, I know a couple of places in town that you can go to, and they'll let you in there, you know, and you should be able to get a place for your family there, and they're pretty decent instead of these other places that let you come in. I'm like, okay. She said, because I know what it must have took for you to come back. I guess she could see my face, you know what I mean? So that's what she did. And sure enough, we went and found us a nice place. We bypassed the part because she said I couldn't stay there, but she knew a place in Memphis that was good enough, and she understood what I was looking for, and that's how I ended up getting that place. So the point is, the moral of the story is sometimes you got to face what you don't want to because you never know. It can turn out in your favor. Even though I thought it would not, I was basically just going to leave out of there and go back to these places that they were recommending we go that really doesn't matter what you have. But you know how those places is. They don't have a gate. You know, this place had a gate where you had to at least swipe in, you know, nice stuff. And you got to face that. And I still remember it today because I'm nowhere near that now. But that is one of the things that deals with when you're dealing with my art. It's all internal. Nobody made me go back inside. Nobody told me I had to. There were several scriptures I could have leaned on that would have kept me in the car and not doing it. But I turned around and I faced that. And to someone else, they may not think that's a big deal. But if you know me, you know, I'm very I like to do things the right way when I can. Of course, I'm way far from that now, but at the time, that took a lot for me to turn around and go back in there and tell that woman that, hey, listen, I just lied to you to your face. You know, I'm glad I did it now, but this is what we're talking about. We start talking about reciprocity and correcting that we did things that we did wrong. and and telling yourself, hey, listen, that wasn't right. Let me fix that. Family members too. A lot of times, people fall out with family members. They fall out with them forever. Some of them even die before they even
Transition.
Yep, before they even get a chance to. And then I've seen the other where when they transition, now you're going crazy and screaming and falling in the casket. No, you see. So do it now. Do it now. Okay. The last one is righteousness. Righteousness. Acting with proper, respectful, and ethical conduct. Now, have you noticing now all these are tying to each other now?
That's right.
Right? If you're doing reciprocity, you're going to be righteous, right? If you are doing things in order, you're going to be following balance and harmony. And if you're walking in truth, you're going to receive the justice from that. So all these are lining up. And righteousness just has to do with, treating others as you would expect to be treated. And if you can get to the level, treating them as they expect to be treated, whether you expect that or not. So this is another thing that is pointing to internal changes. Now, if you notice, one word is missing in that. One word in these 7 principles. You got truth, justice, harmony. You have balance. You got order. You got reciprocity. You got righteousness. But where is that one word that we're always using? Okay, and it's overworked in Scripture, and that is love. If you take those and you wrap them all up and put them on the balance of love, now you're talking about a healthy society. Because love has to do with charitable actions, not selfish actions. So if you look at love as providing for, provision, and creating an environment where everyone can grow up in peace, it's different than this red heart symbol that you look at and they describe as this woo-woo feeling in the air when you meet somebody, right? That is not it, okay? You can't make love. And I know there's a lot of people going to be thrown by that. There is no making love. Love can't be made. Love is. It exists. So if you can't make it. What it is that you create it through this philosophy of Ma'at. And it's something that you'll feel there. Now, what you're feeling when you're with somebody or you just meet somebody is you're infatuated. And they call that halo effect. But anyone that has any level of maturity in them will admit that it goes away. You get to visit it from time to time, anniversary, birthday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, but you can't live there no more. Because after the first 30 days, if it's a year, you're good. That's why an anniversary is a year. If it's a year and you're still feeling it is good. But it goes away, and in comes these philosophy of Ma'at and your responsibility to maintain what you built on this foundation of love, okay? But you can't make it. You can have sex. You can come together, okay? But the closest you come to making love as a couple is the way you treat each other through your daily walk in life every day. Oh, you don't believe, Doc? Okay, then treat her bad all day and then try to make it that night and see what
see what you get.
Go. So I'm gonna cover real quick. Truth, justice, harmony, balance, order, reciprocity, and righteousness all sit on the pillar of this love, okay, which is an action of charitable actions, all balancing everything out for a better society. Go ahead, brother.
Wow. Well, that's a lot to take in.
I know, because it's a lot. And my art is actually, can get deeper. But I'll tell you what, this is a good place to start.
Oh, it is definitely a great place to start. My question is there a difference? Now, you just laid out the 7 principles
Yes.
of Ma'at.
Yes.
The 42 negative confessions
Yes.
of Ma'at
Yes.
are different?
Well, the principles of Ma'at and the 42 confessions are definitely different but the 42 confessions, what that does is put you in the position to practice Ma'at. Okay. And I can't cover them all now, but you can, I have them. I'll send them to you and you'll see them. It's basically a list of I will nots. Okay. And when you get to where you're at the end, where you will not do these things negatively to yourself, now that puts you in a position to practice truth,
7
justice,
principles.
harmony. Right. You see? Good. That's a good question.
Makes total sense. Well, Dr. Darby, family listeners out there, hey, I hope you stay in tune. You're hearing all this great information is being dropped. The only thing that we want to do is elevate.
Yes, sir.
As we conduct each one of these episodes, I am learning. I want you to also be free.
Mm-hmm.
I do have something separate from this subject that we just went over.
Mm-hmm.
You ready, Dr. Darby?
I'm ready. Go.
Okay. Who do you pick? The Barge or Atlantic Star?
Atlantic Star. That's easy work.
That's easy work?
Atlantic Star. Secret Lovers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Freakeristic.
Ooh.
Girl, you are to me. Dedicate my life. Always.
Always.
Okay.
I kind of figured. I mean, the Barge is a great, they were a phenomenal group. But Atlantic Star's hits just...
Yeah, well, but the Barge, when they came out, I was a younger guy, and that we thought they sound too girly for us, man. Them high-pitched voices. They had all them high-pitched voices in there, man. You remember Switch, which was the brother
Are you gonna
of
call
the...
me like you said you would?
Yeah,
Like,
come on,
no,
man. What's wrong with him, man? Get some bass in your voice, man. No, my crew, I like the song, okay, but no, Atlantic Star, though, man, I thought you were going to give me another one that I probably could not answer, but with Atlantic Star, the other group, but yeah, that was easy. What's next?
Oh, and that was it. I think we're going to...
Who you pick?
I picked Atlantic Star.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it's almost like my wife says, that's apples and oranges.
She did?
Yeah, she's like,
Go
Atlantic
D.
Star.
Yeah.
They're 2 different groups.
I'll tell you what then. I'll give you 2 seconds, throw one back at you.
Okay.
Atlantic Star, Midnight Star.
Oh, I'm still sticking with Atlantic Star.
Okay.
I'm still sticking with Atlantic Star.
That's a tough one, though.
It is. I'm sticking with Atlantic Star.
Yes, sir.
All right. One more.
Okay.
OJ's or the Spinners?
OJ's over everybody. Is that simple enough for you?
That is.
OJ's over everybody. Give me someone with a better catalog. Give me a group with a better catalog than
Earth,
OJ's.
Wind and Fire.
Better catalog than OJ's? Well, when I go Earth, Wind and Fire, I look at that as band. And Earth, Wind and Fire, I don't think no band can come close to them. However, there's somebody knocking at the door that a lot of people don't, and that's Cameo. They're at the back door. But Earth, Wind and Fire, man, how you gonna? I got Earth, Wind and Fire, Frankie Billy and Maze.
Actually, that's the one that we debated. Earth, Wind and Fire versus Maze.
Yeah, Earth, Wind and Fire still would be. No. Philip Bailey.
Yeah.
Maurice White.
I know.
Would you mind? No, man. No. Maybe I'm just the basement dude, old.
All right. Well, Dr. Darby, once again, my friend, thank you for another episode, and I look forward to our next one.
Yes, sir.
We're going to grow.
Yes, sir. Let's keep it
and
going.
audience members, you're going to grow with us.
I appreciate you, man.
Until next time, be empowered.
Salute.